Hey guys, what's up? It's Cam here, and I haven't made content in quite a while, but I have come across this opportunity to kind of respond to an atheist claims towards me on my faith and why he believes that I'm wrong. I had recently released a video about creation, morality, and evil, and somebody left a rather lengthy comment on my video about the atheistic views and the science and how I'm wrong and how my faith is incorrect. So I do want to say I did take that video down because there's a lot of things that I said in very plain terms that are too loosely used for people who are educated in that subject. And it makes me kind of sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's why I'm making this video, to respond to this comment, to show the reasons why I do believe what I believe. A little bit about me, for those of you guys who don't know, I was a strong Christian in my teen years. I spent last 4 or 5 years combating Christianity, trying to disprove God. And I recently came back to my faith in Christ through evidence, through looking for, is this true or not? And so, as a critical thinker, as someone who appreciates science and appreciates like facts and common sense, I want to respond to this person's comment step for step. So it's going to be a rather in-depth video. It's going to be a lengthier video, but I want you guys to know that no matter if you're an atheist, you can maybe follow along with what this guy's saying, or if you're a Christian, you can. Hopefully, my response to this person is going to deepen your faith in Christ through a scientific perspective. I want to stress that because 100% of my faith base, right, of what I talk about when it comes to my faith is from a logical, this is why I believe what I believe. There is obviously a small element of faith, believing that God's going to work in ways, that humans can't, obviously due to his supernatural abilities. But for the video, this is logical reasoning why I believe. And it's cool because it's like a debate. I'm going to read the whole entire comment to you guys, and I'm going to go through it, and I'm going to break it down. I'm going to respond. I do want to say, in the video that I released, I talked about creation, morality, and evil. He only responds to the creation part. He only tries to debunk what I'm saying about creation. And the reason why I want to use this person's comment is because I do believe it is a accurate, rather well worded argument of what a educated atheist would argue to a Christian. It's not just some nonsense. There is some nonsense in here. Obviously, you'll see their logic is flawed, but it's not just some like spam that I'm like trying to just come back and fight against. I'm not throwing my pearls to pigs in this instance. I'm actually going to go through something that is going to be educational for a lot of people. And so hopefully you guys can gain something from this. And one last thing before I dive in, I do want to stress that I believe healthy debate is so important for us. I think it's something that's lacking in society. They say don't talk about religion and politics. Those are two things we don't talk about. Why? Well, those things are very, very controversial. But also, when it comes to religion, it has a supernatural, eternal afterlife impact. And that makes people uncomfortable. Some people think it's weird. They don't even want to acknowledge it. But after this video, hopefully you have an understanding about how real it is and why it does matter. I also do have a 4-month-old puppy pit bull, and he's right here next to me. So you might hear some howling. He wants some attention. So, I mean, let me see if I can get him to come up here quick. Oh, come here. Oh, that's a big boy. Would you like to say hi to the people? He's like, what is going on? He's like, Dad's talking about your creator, buddy. Okay. Anyways, so without further ado, thank you, Tonka, for making your guest appearance in my video on God. So this person comments on my video, says, I struggle to believe anyone has spent any serious amount of time looking into and debating these issues and yet has as poor of a scientific understanding as you. So he starts off with an attack. Whatever. People online like to attack, like to be super negative. Go on your way. Do it. Whatever. Doesn't hurt my feelings. But now I want to know what you're saying. Why? Why do you say this? Why do you think I'm so uneducated when it comes to scientific stuff, right? And then he says, dash, it's like a period, bullet point, a ball of energy, question mark. The expansion of space and time is thought to have come from an infinitesimal point, not a ball. Okay, so for context, this comment is rather aggravating because in my video, I am loosely explaining the Big Bang to people that might not know anything about it. So I apologize for not saying it's an infinitesimal point, which means it's so small it can't be measured, right? That's what it means, not a ball. Okay, but if it's this small, if it's that infinitesimal, I think I'm saying that word right. I'm probably saying it wrong. If it's that small and it's a circle, hey, it's a ball. Okay, it was just a term I used, but he's so concerned about it. Not a ball. Okay, sorry, I used the wrong term, but also understand. I want atheists to understand this. If you believe in this and you do not believe in a creator, you are arguing that an immeasurable amount of matter expanded into everything that we have now. And that logic, no matter what your faith is flawed. It is not common sense. There's no common sense to say, hey, there was an amount of matter that was so small it couldn't be measured and it expanded into the whole entire universe and all these galaxies and stuff. So I'm sorry I used the word ball. I just think of a spherical piece of matter. And then you also say that it is so small it can't be measured, and that's how it started. Okay. And I also have dogs wrestling in the background, so don't mind me. All right, let's carry on. The Big Bang happened? Question mark. Exploded. So he's word picking me right here, which isn't really an argument on his end, but this is common in debates for people to criticize the way you say things because it reflects how intelligent you are about what you're talking about usually. But the Big Bang happened? Question mark. Exploded. Another term thing, another term attack. I said there was a ball of energy and it exploded. Yes, the Big Bang, the bang part is an explosion. That's what I'm referring to. Maybe exploded was the wrong word. Maybe it's expanded rapidly. I don't know what the proper context or word this person wants me to use, but I use exploded. All right. I was in the army and I enjoy using that word. Exploded. Okay. Anyways, the Earth came to be after the bang? Question mark. He says. No, period. The Earth is thought to be the product of a dead star, comma, as is the sun. Okay. Now, what are you saying? What are you saying? The Earth came to be after the bang? No. Yes. Yes, it did. The Earth came to be after the Big Bang. On the timeline, no matter how much time it took, the Earth came to be after the Big Bang, right? And he says the Earth is thought to be a product of a dead star, as is the sun. Whether it's a product of a dead star or not, it came after the Big Bang. Let's be clear, right? So that is just a flawed statement to be like the Earth came after the Big Bang? Question mark. No, the Earth. So the Earth didn't come after the Big Bang. The Earth came before the Big Bang. That makes absolutely no sense. So he's just trying to make a point that like the Earth is thought to be a product of a dead star. So it did come after the Big Bang because a dead star would have to come about after the Big Bang, right? After everything expanded, right? So yeah, that is a completely pointless thing to say, as is the sun. So the sun and the Earth are thought to be dead stars. Hey, I didn't say anything that is against that. I said nothing that is against that. Okay. But yes, of course, the Earth and the sun came to be after the Big Bang, 100%. The sun led to the Milky Way? Question mark. I don't think I said that, but for anyone who may have watched that video, maybe I did, because he says the sun led to the Milky Way? Question mark. Obviously, the sun did not lead to the Milky Way. The sun is within the Milky Way. The Milky Way is the galaxy, right? And then he goes into some scientific evidence. He says the Milky Way is thought to precede the sun by around 6 to 9 billion years. What are you even talking about? This is just a misunderstanding of the Big Bang cosmology. coming from the person who said the Big Bang is not an explosion, and the person who said that the Earth and Sun did not come after the Big Bang. Okay, so I don't think I'm in the wrong so far, right? This is not an area that you have spent much time looking into. The reality is you don't know, but cosmetologists have a pretty good idea about most of this stuff. The effect of gravity on our bodies and mass results in predictable outcomes. The rotation of the Earth, its orbit around the sun, and the moon's orbit around the Earth are not strange. Okay. Not only are these things repeated in what we see throughout the known universe, okay, you're highlighting that there's order in the universe. That's cool. But these are things that we would expect from the effect of gravity. Okay, cool. I don't disagree. I don't think I have a poor understanding. I think, I didn't say that the sun leads the Milky Way, right? And me saying that a Big Bang took place and then Earth and the sun came to be after that is not wrong. It is just I didn't say that there was billions of years in between when the Big Bang happened and the sun and the Earth came to be. Okay. And to even get down and dirty in the details, I went to this website, the Planetary Society. So this is not a Christian website. Okay. And we're going to dive in to the Big Bang. So around 13.8 billion years ago, right? The Big Bang forms the universe. 4.6 billion years ago, a group of protostars, I don't know if I said that right, which one will become the sun, form a cloud of debris left by prior star explosions in the Milky Way. All right, so of course, yeah, the sun was a dead star. That makes sense. 4.59 billion years ago. I love how, like, to the detail these years are, like they actually know, like that specifically. The giant planets Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune form around the protosun. Okay, cool. 4.5 billion years. Get this. This is a scientific website, an astronomy website. 4.55 billion years ago, let there be light. Sun begins fusing hydrogen into helium, meaning the sun starts burning up and light is created. Fascinating. 4 to 5 to 4.1 billion years ago, sun gravity separates from the protostar sibling. On and on and on. 3.8 to 3.5 billion years ago, life begins on Earth. 3 billion years ago, Mars loses most of its atmosphere and water. 1 billion years ago, volcanism on the moon stops. 66 million years ago, a giant asteroid impacts Earth, triggering global climate change. 3/4 of life, including dinosaurs, go extinct. So that's the layout. Everything that I have said in my previous video about creation, about there being a Big Bang in the beginning, because my stance is that the Big Bang 100% happened. It is scientifically proven, but I'm saying the story and the cause of the Big Bang is God, is a creator God. That is my argument. For anyone who wasn't following what I'm saying, that is my argument. All right. So I believe that the Big Bang took place. I believe that there are billions of years in between this. And I believe that the sun and moon came to be, or the sun and earth came to be, right? And I do believe he says the gravity of the sun and the earth and the moon and all of that is not strange. I do believe it is kind of strange for something not existing at all prior, or just a immeasurable amount of matter, and then all of that takes place. That is strange to me. But I also like how he highlights this is something we see repeated throughout the universe, right? So he's literally highlighting that there is order in the universe, that these things are taking place, that these are like set in motion, like these are laws and principles that apply to the whole entire universe. It is not strange, okay? So far, hasn't debunked anything that I'm talking about. Just criticizing the terms I'm using, and yeah, that's unfortunate that was like his first main argument. When I first read this comment, I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And then as I picked it apart, I realized that, I have reasons for why I believe what I believe. I'm not just sitting here like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. It's fun. Like, no, it's real talk, man. It is. So to go into the next subject, he wants to bring up time, space, and matter. And this is probably my favorite subject. But um don't be burdened by this if you have a hard time understanding it. It is not going to affect your salvation in any way, shape, or form if you have a hard time understanding it as a Christian, but it is going to help build your faith if you can understand it as a believer. And for the atheist or the skeptic, this is so important to understand. So I do want to start by saying I understand the scientific view and why a lot of scientists are opposed to believing in God, because in science you learn, and you learn this in school if you go to school for something in science, it's very much, if there is not evidence for it, if it is not proven, you cannot say it's real, essentially, which is very problematic if you want to get into technical terms. But anyways, so there are scientists that like literally have the idea and the feeling that something did create all this, but it hasn't been proven. So they refuse to believe it. This is where I think Stephen Hawking was like, a famous atheist, knew so much about the universe. And I think in my mind, I'm like, this guy definitely had to be like, how did this come to be? Like there could be a creator, but it's not scientifically proven to him. So in his scientific mind, it is not an option, right? Only things that have evidence and are proven, which would suck if the very first person that started making these discoveries thought that way, right? But it's a longing, a critical thinking process of understanding and testing and researching and testing and debunking and debating, arguing and finding out what is true, right? So I understand the mindset, but I hope what I'm about to get into really paints a picture for you, okay? He says, no matter, no space, no time equals nothing. Correct. There was nothing in the beginning. And this is why I'm going to get into the universe had a beginning. If you believe the argument is that in order for space, time, and matter to be created, it had to be created by something that has no space, no time, no matter. He says that is nothing, right? If time did not exist, when was time created? Okay. God. Okay. I'm going to get more in depth though. It's not my easy explanation. You express the theistic claims you are putting forward are logical, but they are just nonsense assertions. Sorry. Nonsense assertions that fall apart in the lightest scratching beneath the rhetoric. Okay. Using fancy terms to try to debunk me. I'm going to dive into what I'm talking about. In order for time, space, and matter to be created, it needs to be created by something that has no space, no time, no matter. An easy way to picture this is people will be like, aliens created us, aliens created the universe. But it's like aliens would be matter. They would have space and they would have time. So something had to create them. And now this is where people have a hard time understanding this. Something that has no time, no space, no matter is supernatural. Like in my words, like something being supernatural is something that has no time, no space, no matter. You can think about it in like a different realm, if you would. I mean, I think that's the easiest way to explain it. But essentially, yes, before the universe, before no matter, no space, no time existed, equals nothing. Yes, nothing existed in this physical world. Nothing is what a rock thinks about. It's literally zero, right? But it comes into existence. Why? Because something that doesn't have time, space, or matter has the ability to create it, right? And that is the supernatural. That's why when he's saying, if time did not exist, when was time created? When? See, he is in a very like human, and I understand people that have a very, very basic logical understanding of everything have a hard time grasping this, but it's a very human thing. But like we think of everything in time spans. But this is why God is eternal, is because where God is, in the realm God is, obviously God is here with us too, but where he is has no time. It's not like there's a stopwatch running forever, and that's what eternity is. It's that in that realm, there is no time, so it just exists always. And it's hard to grasp, but that's like, if you think about heaven and hell, that's why people talk about eternal life. And they talk about hell, and they're like, why would God send somebody to hell forever? And it's like, no, God's not sending you there on a time thing. right? If you choose to not be part of him, you are going to eventually die and cross over into another realm where time does not exist. And then you are either going to spend time in heaven or you're going to spend time in hell. For in that realm, which has no time, which equals eternity. I hope that makes sense, right? And there's no matter, no space, no time there. So it is an eternal thing, a thing that is just there always, right? And I'm going to get into some of the scientific side of it, right? Because I think there are some things that are appropriate to be mentioned when talking about this. And I want to go over the SURGE acronym. These are things that prove that pretty much the Big Bang happened, but also that there was a beginning to the universe. Because before Albert Einstein discovered what he discovered, they thought the universe was eternal. They thought that, but they're still thinking about it on a time spectrum. You know what I mean? They're still thinking, oh, the universe has always been and always will be. But there's things that show us that it's not. And I'm going to dive into that right now. So the second law of thermodynamics. Thermodynamics is the study of matter and energy. The second law states, among other things, that the universe is running out of usable energy. With each passing moment, the amount of usable energy in the universe grows smaller, leading scientists to the obvious conclusion that one day all the energy will be gone and the universe will die. Like a running car, the universe will ultimately run out of gas. Okay, so the universe is using energy. Eventually, it's going to run out of energy. And then it would be out of gas by now if basically it's saying it would be out of gas by now if it always existed. If it always existed, it would have ran out, right? Um, in the same way, the universe would be out of energy by now if it had been running from all eternity. Makes sense. So there's this evidence to support that it was created at a certain time and it has fuel and it is burning the energy and eventually it will no longer be. So that's the first one. The second one is the universe is expanding. Edwin Hubble looked through his telescope more than a decade later that scientists finally confirmed that the universe is expanding and that it's expanding from a single point, right? So the universe is expanding from a single point. This would be where the Big Bang took place. If we could watch a video recording of the history of the universe in reverse, we would see all the matter in the universe collapse back into a point, not the size of a basketball, not the size of a golf ball, not even the size of a pinhead, but mathematically and logical to the point that is actually nothing. No space, no time, no matter. In other words, there was nothing, and then bang, there was something. The entire universe exploded into being. This, of course, is commonly known as the Big Bang. So you see what I'm saying? This person is right when they use that fancy word that I have a hard time saying. Infinitesimal point, right? He's proving what I'm trying to say. This person that's commenting on my video is proving what I'm trying to say. That this amount of matter was so tiny that it's immeasurable, and actually, if you keep going back and back and back and watch it in reverse, it would be nothing. It's important to understand that the universe is not expanding into empty space, but into space itself is expanding. Space itself is expanding, excuse me. There was no space before the Big Bang. So the universe is not expanding into space out there. The space itself is expanding, is growing. The space was created. It's hard to comprehend, I understand. All right. In fact, chronologically, there was no before the Big Bang because there are no befores without time, and there was no time until the Big Bang. So there you go. I hope that kind of brings a little clarity to what I'm trying to say. But yes, we are not done. Radiation from the Big Bang. Penzias, I hope I say this right. Penzias and Robert Wilson detected strange radiation on the antenna at Bell's lab in Holmdel, New Jersey. Right? Sorry, I read too fast and then I mispronounce words. And then technically known as the cosmic background radiation, this afterglow is actually light and heat from the initial explosion. This light is no longer visible because its wavelength has been stretched by expanding universe to wavelengths slightly shorter than those produced by a microwave oven, but the heat can still be detected. So we can still detect the heat radiation from the Big Bang. How incredible is that? So I'm proving the Big Bang, but from a God put it into motion perspective. So this is the Great Galaxy Seeds. They're talking about ripples, I believe. Not only found ripples, but scientists were amazed at their precision. The ripples show that the explosion and expansion of the universe was precisely tweaked to cause just enough matter to conjugate to allow galaxy formation, but not enough to cause the universe to collapse back on itself. So there's arguably some divine creation organization to this Big Bang. Where are we at now? Oh, and then the big one is Einstein's theory of general relativity, which is his theory of general relativity is the fifth line of scientific evidence that the universe had a beginning, and his discovery was the beginning of the end for the idea that the universe is eternal. The theory itself, which has been verified to 5 decimal places, demands an absolute beginning for time, space, and matter. It shows time, space, and matter are correlative. That is, they are interdependent. You can't have one without the other. So those are the scientific evidences, and it's out of this book called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. If you want to read this, unfortunately, a lot of people, it seems, that are non-believers don't want to read things that would prove them wrong. But if you are a Christian, you're looking to strengthen your faith, that's a great book. If you're looking for logical reasoning behind what you believe. Okay, so we got all that. The universe had a beginning. Before the universe, there was no time, space, and matter. It is a quite difficult concept to grasp, but at the end of the day, I hope the way I portrayed it in this video makes it easier to understand. Okay, he says you express these theological claims or theistic claims you are putting forward are logical. They are logical. The way I just explained it, it makes sense. It makes a lot more sense to say if the beginning of the Big Bang was absolutely nothing at one point, that there is something without time, space, and matter, also known as a supernatural being, that was able to create something. It makes more sense to believe something created something rather than nothing created something. That is 100% logical. That is logical to say this all came out of nothing and nothing had a play in this is not logical whatsoever. And then he said they're nonsense assertions. Clearly they're not. I hope you guys from that little couple minutes see what I'm talking about. That the outside space, time, and matter is supernatural, and it is able to create and impact material things. Okay. And that's why, again, like I said, God is outside of there, a different realm. Time has no effect on him. He's not in time. This is why God is eternal. This is why heaven and hell are eternal. They are outside of time. And this is why God is able to see the past, the future, the beginning, and the end, because he's outside of time. He can see it from his standpoint. He sees the beginning and the end. It's like a big timeline to him. He can see it all because he is not held by time. He created time. I hope that makes sense. There's definitely skeptics and people that are non-believers that are like, what? Yes, it makes sense when you look at it that way. It makes more sense than saying that there is nothing and then boom, billions of years of just fireballs and stuff like that just came into being, that gravitational force, and how exactly it had to happen to take place in order for life to come onto Earth isn't strange at all. That's what he said. He said it isn't strange. It's very strange to me. Okay, and then going to dive into the next thing he said, which is bringing up sorry, clear my throat in the mic. Bringing up evolution, kind of. He says, first of all, for context, my argument was evolution is flawed because essentially scientists will claim macroevolution is true, meaning one species mutates, and he will attack me saying mutates, but one species essentially has mutations and will form or morph into another species over time. That's what macroevolution is. Microevolution is adaptations within a species. So, for example, Bird beaks shaping a certain way to get the food that they eat over time is microevolution, right? Macroevolution would be a fish growing legs and coming up onto land and turning into a land animal. That's macroevolution. Um, so he says, then there is your understanding of biology, dot, dot, dot. A mutation that transforms a species into another species. Question mark. Yes. Yes, that's what evolution is. It's these adaptations and these mutations over time are passed down through generation, causing change. And a lot of scientists will say that that is what led to all of these animals being created and creatures, is that it all came from one point. Kind of like the Big Bang, makes no sense, believes that some, maybe an immeasurable amount of living bacteria was in the water. How did it get there? And then it morphed into something that had gills. It morphed into something that had legs. It morphed into something that had feathers, on and on and on. Okay. Um, he said you sneer at this at the specification, but then affirm intergenerational adaptation. That is that it occurs. Okay. Anyways, sorry. Um, Yeah. Yeah, I did talk about adaptation, intergenerational adaptation. He's missing the macro versus micro evolution point here. And I may have not explained that as in detail as I should have in that video, but that is the difference. Mutations transforms a species into another species, question mark. Yes, that is what I'm asking you, non-believer. How do you believe that? How do you believe that an elephant and like a gecko have originated from the same place? It makes zero sense. It makes actually zero sense. It is zero logic. Okay, it's flawed. It's flawed, right? And so he brings up the fossil records. Fossils are individual, question mark. Some, yes, but that speaks to the rare nature of fossilization. But we also have many of the same. Okay. The groups and Earth individual locations, including the early ancestors of humans. Perhaps you should pay more attention in your biology class. Better still, take these questions to the lecturer. First of all, he's assuming that my lecturer is a liberal atheist, right? Which I don't believe he was, because he spent so much time emphasizing that life begins at conception scientifically. Oops, don't want to push that button right now. But anyway, so I brought up the fossil record, and this sounds like he's not understanding what I'm saying when I said fossils are individual. The argument about the fossil record is that there are gaps in the fossil record. So we have fossils of species, and then we have fossils of other species. There is no, I mean, there's like that, that human that kind of looks like an ape thing, but that could be easily a mutation that died early from complications, and you found the fossil. But there would be significant amounts of fossilization of these in between species, right? Even and what they use in the fossil record, there's this book called Darwin's Doubt, if you want to look into it more yourself. But essentially, these gaps in the fossil record are proving that there is no in between stages. There is this animal, this organism, and then there is this organism. And there is no, like, you would have so many fossils of just like, wait, which animal is that? This one or that one? Because it'd be in transformation to the next. You know what I'm saying? Um, so that is a huge thing in science that kind of combats what Darwin thought was to be true. Um, because there is gaps in the fossil record. And he said fossils are individual. So that's might have been what I said. But when I said that, I meant fossils are individual, as in like the species itself is a fossil, like I said before, and then another species is a fossil. There is a gap. There is a big gap there. There is no like half this, half that fossil. There are gaps in it, showing that even if they're millions or billions of years old, there's still individual species. And then to expand a little bit more on this topic, just to be clear, evolution, I used to believe I'd be like, okay, well, there's millions and millions of years, a lot can happen in that time. What you're not understanding, or what they're not understanding, is that a mutation that is going to be so impactful or severe, to transform a animal into a different species, is going to be a mutation that is going to either make that animal infertile or die early, because it is not going to be able to function properly. And then you want to get into it. You can talk about the DNA and the genetic coding within the nucleus of cells and stuff like that, and how this DNA is so detailed. If you stretch out DNA, it's like over a meter long. I don't know the exact measurement. Don't want to get crucified in the comment section for saying the wrong thing, but it's essentially super detailed and super long, and it's all within a tiny cell. And like all these different species have their own individual DNA, their genetic coding. And to think it all came from one place is absolutely absurd. It doesn't make any sense. So there you go. That's my piece on that. And then this one I actually found kind of interesting, and I had to look into this one. He said, I'm not going to go into the rest of the video on my morality and evil, right? And don't want to dip your toes in that one because I'm right. But he says on the fifth day in Genesis 1 account, birds were supposedly created. And then he goes on to say that birds were actually, if I knew anything about science, I would know that birds came after land animals. Well, from my research, in Genesis 1, it does say on the fifth day. And the reason why this matters, it doesn't matter if you're a new world creationist, which means that you believe that wait, maybe I have that backwards. Anyways, if you believe that the earth was actually created in 6 days, this doesn't really matter to you. But my argument was that every day in Genesis 1 is like millions of years. So it does matter in the context that I was explaining it, that birds came first. And so um two things. First of all, birds are thought to evolve from land animals in the scientific realm. If macroevolution is false, which it seems to be, then that's flawed. To think that they evolved from land animals is irrelevant, because they would be created themselves. I don't know why people who believe in science and evolution would think that animals were just like in their head. They're like, I want to start flying someday. I need to fly. And they would grow feathers over generations, and like their bones and their skin that used to be slimy and scaly with gills turned into skin, which turns into feathers. Have you ever looked at a feather and how detailed that is and what that's made up of? Like, it's insane to believe all this. It's really insane. So anyways, that's first. And then also, people need to understand, and this is where I think people kind of get mixed up. There's a lot of atheists that'll be like, well, the Bible doesn't mention anything about dinosaurs. And it's like, do you understand what the Bible is? The Bible is a bunch of books that are put together, and Christians believe that it is inspired by the Spirit of God, that God had a role in it, but it was written by man. It was written through man, right? So, with that being said, imagine all the things I read, right? Imagine the 13 billion years ago when the Big Bang happened, and then the 3 million years ago when life begins on Earth, and then the existence of dinosaurs and the extinction of dinosaurs 66 million years ago. And then in Genesis 1, I don't know who it's thought to be. That's a thing on my end. But in Genesis 1, they're basically explaining the beginning of time, right? So I'm actually going to Google this quick. Yeah, so they think that Genesis was written by Moses. And it was inspired by written anonymously, but both Jewish and Christian religious traditions give Moses credit for it. Anyways, so my point behind all of this is saying that imagine taking that amount of information, right? I don't think God is coming to the man and being like, "Hey, so around 13.8 billion years ago, I decided to start to create a universe, right? And then around, like this many billion years later, I decided to say, let there be light and set the sun on fire. Like that is such a some of these arguments that atheists put forward are so goofy because you're like, use common sense. It's the Bible. It's the origin of life in Genesis 1, how it was created. Instead of being like, oh, there's a big bang, like atheists act like they want the Bible to be like, in the beginning there was the heavens and the earth. Around 13.8 billion years from your current time, God made matter and caused a big bang, an explosion, and then around a long time later, he said, "Let there be light," which is actually in Genesis 1. Let there be light when the sun is set on fire, or it could be when the sun is set on fire, or it could be when the Big Bang happened. Whatever it may be. I don't know. All I'm saying is that these books are like they're recording. Man is writing this. You're receiving this from the Spirit of God, writing this down. It's not some, you know what I mean? They're being so nitpicky about it. Like, where's dinosaurs? Do you think God thought it was relevant to put in the Bible? Hey, and there were giant animals that used to eat each other and were crazy and stuff like that. And then I sent a meteor to the earth to blow them up pretty much. Like it's very, you have to take it like for what it is. It's the word of God, and it's supernatural working through man, right? And you'll see that throughout the Bible. Um, and it's very, very fascinating. So, first of all, again, with that bird statement, it's his claim is based off macroevolution. The only thing I can think of is if there is fossil records dating back to dinosaurs being older than birds, which would communicate that there were land animals before there were birds, but if it's not in relation to human beings, after the dinosaurs went extinct, the birds were still around, the sea creatures were still around after the dinosaurs were wiped out, and then other animals came to be. I don't know. This is one that I'm like, okay, I do have faith on this because I think about it. I'm like, all of these things that this guy says, the most important one, I think, not well for modern day people, because so many people that don't believe in Christianity and they're like skeptics, they just blindly believe in evolution. They will like, well, yeah, we evolved. And it's like they know so little about what evolution is actually claiming to be. But so besides from the gaps in the fossil record, the no space, no time, and no matter thing is probably the most important thing, I would argue, because not only is it a hard thing to understand, so people don't like give it time, but it makes so much sense once you understand it, right? It makes so much sense when you think about it as a different realm where time does not exist, therefore it is eternal. It's not eternal because it is always been for time. It's eternal because it is outside of time. I know I've said that like 10 times in this video, but I think that's very important to understand. Um, so yeah, that, and then I didn't even tap into because he didn't talk about the life of Jesus. Had nothing to say about the evidence of the life of Christ and the resurrection, and how the guys were following him throughout his life. These guys were following him, being taught by him. He told these specific men that, hey, I'm going to be tortured. I'm going to be crucified. I'm going to die. I'm going to rise from the dead. And these men, shortly after that took place, the years following, they were willing to die, be tortured, travel all over different places, witnessing, teaching about Christ. Why would they do that if he never came back? If they never saw him again? Imagine you're hanging with someone who's teaching you this, right? You got to just put yourself in their shoes. And he's saying, like, eventually I will be taken from you, and, I'll conquer death. I'll come back. And then this guy goes and dies on the cross. And then you just never hear anything from him again. And then you're just like, oh, I'm going to go teach all the nations about this. I'm going to be beaten and tortured and starved to death and whipped and crucified upside down. And, all of these terrible, terrible things because I never saw the guy come back to life. Right. So, there is strong evidence for God's involvement in creation and the creation of space, time, and matter. and the creation in animals when it comes to gaps in the fossil record, how these animals are created individually. Mind you, he has given us the ability to adapt to our environments and to change. Adaptation itself is such a detailed, interesting thing that we're able to do as living creatures, adaptation itself is like something that just doesn't happen from like, oh, it just came to be bacteria and it's adapting to its environment. And it's like, yeah, but where'd that come from? You know what I mean? And I make these videos. I mean, sometimes in this video, I'd be like coming back at the person pretty intense, but I make these videos because I want people to understand that it is real and it makes sense. Not only is it real, but it makes sense. It makes so much sense. And unfortunately, we do live in a world, in a society where, number one, they don't want it to be true, right? Because, oh no, then they don't have control over their own lives. And number two, it takes a lot of time and digging into it, and really, like, you have to be interested and disciplined to research this stuff and to understand it. And I think most of today's society is apathetic. Like, they just don't care. They just don't care. You know, you meet so many people that are just like excuse me. You'll meet so many people that are just like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care. I don't get into politics. I don't get into religion. I don't get into anything that is like confrontational. Don't put me around that. And it's like, but that doesn't lead you to the truth. And the most beautiful thing is understanding the truth is going to lead you to what is real and what is good and what is true. So I hope this video was worth your time, and I hope that you guys gained something from it. I hope that if you are a non-believer, you can kind of see where I'm coming from. And if you're a Christian, I hope this video helps strengthen your faith. And please, please, please do not hesitate to comment on this video or to argue back with me, because I would love to make more videos responding to the other side. I think it's healthy, and I think it's an important thing to do. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you so much for allowing me to introduce my dog. Thank you so much for still listening to me, even though I have this cough. And yeah, man, God bless. Stay safe out there. Continue diving in deep to God's word and the surrounding sources. Like, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. Darwin's doubt. There are these sources out there. Learn about them. Learn about them, especially if you are a Christian. You are commanded, Paul says, that be ready to give an answer for what you believe always. That's paraphrased, but you have to be ready as a Christian to give answers for why you believe what you believe. And in today's world, I feel like we are at that point where there's an agenda being pushed so hard that science is against God. But science is the study of the creation of God. Science is getting closer and closer to God. There are so many scientists that just like, you study the human body and you're like, I believe in God now. You know what I mean? It's like, first of all, consciousness, what the heck? And then this, how can I do this? And the nerves to my brain and how it all works. And it's just like, this does not come from bacteria floating in water and a fish growing legs, and then eventually morphing into this thing that is self-aware and you know is able to operate the way that we do. And it's a beautiful thing that we're humans. So a lot of people aren't taking advantage of it. They're acting like they're animals, like they don't have a purpose. But you do. You're a human being. You have a purpose. You have a soul. And one day you will leave this physical world and you will go to that realm that is eternal, because it does not have time there. And depending on what you choose in this life, there will be results in the next. It's not a punishment. It's your choice. If you don't want to be part of it, it's fine. But I hope you choose to be. All right. Without further ado, thank you guys. God bless.